suspended before lunch the member for South and Central Andros. On the floor, the chair recognizes the member for South and Central Andros.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, like you acknowledged just moments ago, I stand on behalf of the people of the great constituency of Mangrove Key, South and Central Andros. And just a few days ago, I had a chance to be there, the Minister for Transport and Local Government, Member of Parliament for Southern Shores, where we had a day in the district of Mangrove Key, and I thank him for, I didn't make the trip possible, but I thank you for coming to my community. Thank you, sir. And also during my, I wouldn't say a vacation from this place, while being suspended, I also had a chance to visit the high school at the South Andros High School, my alma mater, to be a part of the award ceremony there. And on Monday past, we were at the Bluff, the reopening of the South Andros Library at Money Rock. And I want to thank the Ministry of Education and the Minister of Education publicly for allowing this to happen through the hard-working DS, Mr. Jerome Forbes, and all those involved locally on the ground for making this possible for the students of the South Andros Mangrove Key District. As we look forward to having a Mangrove Key library open pretty shortly, with the assistance once again of the Ministry of Education and the Mangrove Key community, and then moving on to Central Andros. Mr. Speaker, I'll be very brief this afternoon because member for Cat Island, Rumpkins, and Salvador, in my view, followed by my colleague, the member for Angliston, would have made the case very well to the matter that is pressing in this honorable chambers this afternoon, a motion of no confidence in the honorable speaker. Mr. Speaker, I would take a three-pronged approach in my very brief presentation this afternoon. First, to look at the Bahamas as a player on the international scene. Then look at people and their rights and privileges generally in the Bahamas. And also just to look at women and their role in parliamentary democracies and also, by extension, national development. On this day, and the day of love and forgiveness, one would think about maybe giving up those things that would cause you not to be or inherit the kingdom of God that the member of Bamboo Town would so openly and overtly speak about. I have no problem in doing just so. The member for Pine Ridge mentioned earlier, man of faith, and the member for North Abaco, in a more subtle, I guess, approach, he would do the same. But these are some of the gentlemen we'd have our various discussions about when it comes to the matter of faith. In parliamentary democracy, Mr. Chairman, the Speaker plays a very pivotal role in protecting the rights of all members. He serves as the highest authority in the Honorable House of Assembly. He must remain impartial at all times and should serve as an arbiter in this honorable place. Therefore, he must respect the rights of all members at all times, no matter their status, their standing in the various parties, or their station in life. All are equal in here. He must be dispassionate, and therefore, in my view, the Speaker should seek to be non-confrontational. As a matter of fact, the Speaker should be, in my subjective opinion, overarching and extending an olive branch in his everyday deportment amidst using some amicable resolutionary methods to soften issues that could be or may be contentious, that could lead to some level of acrimony and vitriolic sayings being thrown across the floor, or maybe things being accorded or sayings being accorded or connoted to members in unfavorable light in this place. I was not given such a protection just a few days ago, Mr. Speaker, but I leave that alone. The Speaker, Mr. Chairman, should be the grown-up one. When he sees something that may be brewing on the horizon that could create something untoward, or maybe something that he can curb or nip in the bud, maybe that's called for a suspension, ask members to come together so that we can sit down and discuss those matters that are creating some unnecessary wrangling in this honorable place. I noted the fact that we in the Bahamas are a part of the Commonwealth, CARICOM, the larger world. Speakers Commonwealth Organization has had their recent meeting. And people expect much from the Bahamas. They expect us to be a beacon of hope, to adhere to democratic processes, fair play, equal opportunity, and the rule of law. Considering the past of our country, we had all hoped that we wouldn't have to be here today. Whereas we look down this hallowed place, at these walls, where we'll have to be repudiating, some rejecting, others reviling, others speaking in a most condemnatory tone to the action of our beloved speaker. Mr. Chairman, I must note the fact that we are here today simply because the member of Angleston decided to make an intervention and to speak on behalf of two young women. I wouldn't want to say two young black women, but that is the case, in the community of South Eleuthera, Holly Pierce Barrett, Danielle Gibson. And as we're talking about those persons who have been terminated, Mr. Speaker, I can't help but note my good friend and buddy who's watching just now, Minister Dwight Ambrister, who just a few days ago was terminated by the Ministry of Tourism. But I say to you, my brother, and to those who are watching all over this Commonwealth, do not lose hope. There's a bright side somewhere. And all I'm saying to you, once you've given it your best, and if that's your fate, hold fast, because better days are coming by and by. Hold the faith, Minister Dwight. Many are praying for you and all those who have been affected. Mr. Chairman, women of high potential have advanced more slowly than their male counterpart generally in terms of both their career progression, pay, access to equality, the list goes on, even though they employ their employers through career opportunities and management opportunities, have seen and measured their careers many times in a dissimilar fashion. But women continue to move on. Many organizations have neglected their critical talent of management skills simply due to this issue of gender biases, risk lagging further development, imperatives with their companies being thrown further behind, and therefore attracting less than competent individuals with less capacities than these same women who are sometimes pushed aside. So therefore, we in the Bahamas have gotten wind of this fact that no matter what, although we want to maintain our men, and men will still want to remain as protectors, providers, and priests in our homes, that women must be a part of this process of development. Women political participation in various forums and international arenas, and may I say especially regionally, has been recognized, and today they are celebrated not behind the closed doors, but openly for their skills, academic achievement, nurturing spirit, strong work ethic, and which has led to many of them being a part of the decision-making process, not only in politics, but also in many other arenas around the world. Women have remained, by and large, especially in the political arena, and I can speak directly of the Bahamas, underrepresented in forums such as this. And some would say it's because of religion, social, cultural factors, economic, the list goes on. But for whatever reason, that has been the case. So therefore, we can always think about the legacy of Dame Doris, Dame Marguerite, and also Beryl Hannah, Mita Cumberbatch, The list goes on. Many of those who would have given over the years, Janet Bostwick and more contemporary heirs, Dame Ivy, given to our society. So this brings me today, Mr. Speaker, to my colleague who sits just to my immediate right, the member for Angliston, a 21st century woman, a woman who has given much to this country, uncompromising in her views, diligent, a hard worker, and one who cares and loves the Commonwealth of the Bahamas. She brings her passion daily to this honorable place. Her suspension, due to her wanting to have the right to speak truth to power, Mr. Speaker, is a matter that challenges me this afternoon along with my colleagues. Mr. Speaker, the world has evolved, and we in the Bahamas must be a part of the 21st century world. We cannot exit the world, and women have got a role to play in this world. I'm not asking the Bahamas to be in a matriarchal society. I'm not asking that. And the member for Angliston would not want that. But this 4-time elected member, to have her named and suspended, when all of the correct protocols would have not been followed for the suspension, as noted by the leader of our party, member for Cat Island, Rumkinson, Salvador. Article 8:10 in the rules book, 88.4, as he alluded to, says and stipulates what the process should be for this to take place. Motion put, voted upon, none of these things were adhered to. Speaker, rules are made not only for one side, but for both sides in this honorable place. And therefore, Mr. Speaker, it's against that backdrop that I am challenged to leave the Speaker unscathed, and therefore must join my contemporaries this afternoon in condemning his actions in this honorable place. Mr. Speaker, no amount of mischaracterization, misconstruing, misrepresentation, or should I say, even if I were to make a mistake, would it quiet me in representing my people of the great community of South, Central, and Mangrove Key Andros. On the global side of things, Mr. Speaker, the Bahamas, like I mentioned earlier, is a part of the CARICOM community, the Commonwealth, UN, ACS, the list goes on. And to have your colleagues who you would have served with at the CARICOM level in particular call and say to you, what is happening in the Bahamas, man? Because the thing it is, whatever you do here locally has implications for how people see us as a nation on the world stage. Nothing remains in the local community or in the parochial community any longer. As soon as you get this done, the world can see it. So, Mr. Speaker, Mr. Chairman, the issue that I would then quickly look at is that when the Speaker would have made the comment to speak of the CARICOM region about his 38 years of being married to an indigenous Bahamian woman. Mr. Speaker, this is an issue that created a whole lot of concern for me, because if one were to look at what we call an indigenous Bahamian woman, I was in this discussion just the other day, and everyone would say, well, really, none of us really can qualify. But the fact of the matter is, if one would just take a cursory glance and look around this house or this parliament, and then discuss and look at those who are married to persons who are, if you're a senator or a member of parliament, and your spouse is of Caribbean or international extract, how should you feel this afternoon hearing those words from the Honorable Speaker, and for members opposite and members of the governing side to applaud that effort? And men would have, the fact of the matter is, I would think that we in the Bahamas would want to be a part and proud to be a part of the CARICOM community. And we can speak of us as indigenous Caribbean or Caribbean people. These are some of the same people who came, been a part of our society, to build the contemporary Bahamas. Our regional brothers and sisters would have contributed over the years to the Bahamas that we have now in the 21st century. And so we can go on and think about whose father came from where, whose mother came from where. But, Mr. Speaker, the deputy would speak next, member for Exuma and Ragged Island. I like to use what I call down-home examples. How would that lady who worships at St. Agnes or St. Matthew's, Trinity Methodist, like the gentleman told me the other day, part of the Bahamas Conference of Seventh-day Adventists, whose wife is one of the Caribbean islands, or that Bahamian woman who would have studied in the Caricom region, especially at maybe Mona campus, my alma mater, or maybe at St. Aug, or Cable in Trinidad and Barbados, comes here with her husband to hear those comments. And you would be surprised to know who spoke to me and who were offended by these comments, by this commentary. Married to a Jamaican, Trinidadian, Haitian, St. Lucian, Dominican, Cuban, what have you. 67 different nationalities were represented at the International Festival just last year in this Commonwealth of the Bahamas. They are here. They're part of us, contributing to our community. We are what we call a melting pot. These persons have been a part of us in our lodges, in our school, in our educational system, in our law enforcement agencies, in our banking sector. The list goes on. Religious sector, given much. But as I hasten on, Mr. Speaker, there's another issue that I kind of had some views about that. I am not the person who would actually lead the commentary in this one, but one that I was in, I'll say where I was in Starbucks in Palmdale. And I had some young men, remember for North Abaco Smiles, I told them I got to bring this up because it bothered me. And I was surprised to know how incensed persons were at the speaker's comments when he made the comments about perverted individuals. North Abaco, I said what I was going to say, but I had to say it. And to see how aggrieved persons who some can notice being perverted were. And this group of young men came up and talked to me. And they say, we know your antecedents, and we know this and that about you. And I smiled. But I saw hurt on one of their faces. One of their faces, pardon me. At the end of the day, Mr. Speaker, our Constitution speaks to Christian principle. It is not Christian, as the Honorable Speaker would have said, as an ordained minister, to condemn people, and that isn't God's way. And I think we've got to be careful how we say things. I have my very strong views about some things. But I've also known at the end of the day that the Bahamas must subscribe to some international conventions and norms. We must make decisions that are good for us, primarily, but at the end of the day, be a part of the international arena. So therefore, I guess with him getting the resounding applause and everyone knocking on the desk the way they did in this very homophobic society, that all on the governing side are all good, non-perverted individuals, all who have done well and who have kept themselves above reproach. So all I'm saying is that many of us, Mr. Speaker, as we descend on this issue and speak on this issue this afternoon, and talking about indigenous and who is perverted and what have you, none of us are Caribs or Arawaks. And I think it's Calaginos or whatever it is. I did history some years ago, was it? Calaginos, we call it, years ago. But the fact of the matter is, here we are this afternoon. They are also taxpayers, Bahamians, contributing to this society, and they have rights. And once they don't invade your space, you don't invade theirs. And they were very hurt by the comments by the speaker. Now, on my own religious and personal views, I have some views about some things. But I think the speaker must be in a different position. When he would have, and see, let me tell you why. The speaker, why I think these people who met with me, I think it was pretty coincidental. And I felt a level of empathy for them. Because knowing the kind of person I am as a Church of God conservative man, that's who I am, but also understanding parliamentary democracy, domestic and international law to some degree, and simple human decency, I think that we should also understand that we are a part of a community that should be all-inclusive. And we should not throw people away by castigating them. People expect different from the speaker's chair. People expect tolerance, understanding, especially when it comes to human understanding from the speaker's chair. Also, Mr. Chairman, I am not the spokesperson for that community, but I thought I should say that in my speech. I thought I should say that in the speech this afternoon. So I said, also, Mr. Speaker, I should note this afternoon that when one looks at the commentary made by the speaker, looking at the Hansard and the interpretation thereof, and the fact that the speaker virtually would have alluded to the fact that him getting the copy of this transcript that he got from the Hansard was one that he questioned. And he gave some political kind of innuendo to how it was made up and put together for a member for Angliston. It couldn't leave a good feeling in the staff at the Honorable House of Assembly, headed at this time by the, Mr. David Forbes family. Because at the end of the day, these people are hard-working people, Mr. Chairman. They work hard. They work under less than what I call the best condition. A place that has its technological challenges and doesn't reflect the best in infrastructure for what we see in most recent and fledgling parliaments around the world. I think it was the most unfortunate commentary the speaker and the committee made relatively to the staff and their professionalism in this honorable place. And the comments, I think there's nothing should override the comments that would have been documented in the Hansard that was used by the member for Angliston. Mr. Speaker, the action taken in this House by the Speaker towards the member for Angliston was wrong, and in my view, willfully demeaning. It was unfair, and it's also unfair for me, Mr. Speaker, to have been suspended along with the member for my leader for Cat Island, Rumpkins, and Salvador, Rugged Island. Matter of fact, in my view, our record should be cleaned, and we should, this whole suspension should be rescinded. And therefore, our record should reflect differently. I should not see that I was absent or suspended because of what would have occurred a few days ago. Because the Speaker, Mr. Chairman, had a chance to sit, to write, think, and be deliberate. As he presented, I would even call it a soliloquy against the opposition on that fateful morning. A day later, a verbal onslaught for virtually 41 minutes. In my view, Mr. Chairman, the Speaker would have brought this House into a state of public contempt. This afternoon, I would hope as I'm about to take my seat that USA, the members would allow through USA, this chair, the members of the governing side, would allow for the whip to once again be lifted, where members could speak openly to common and human decency, freedom of speech, and goodwill for the Commonwealth of the Bahamas.
Stop stifling debate.
Mr. Speaker, it is bigger than a member for Angliston, who I support openly this afternoon. Because I mentioned earlier, the day has come when women must be a part of that process also. And that the old way of doing things in this didactic, patriarchal way must be a thing of the past. And I think we should have, there must be some level of symbiotic relationship developed between men and women on these issues. And not a patronizing kind of development in these elements, in these issues, and these developments, Mr. Chairman. All I'm saying, Mr. Chairman, it's unfortunate that we are here today. So therefore, it's against that backdrop, I'm about to take my seat, that I stand and unequivocally support the member for Angliston, and also stand against the suspension by the Honorable Speaker and the actions and this deliberation in this honorable place. As one who's been around here a little while and have seen developments with speakers, Mr. Speaker, Mr. Chairman, this one bothered me. As the 54th Speaker, and one who I have a little level of attachment to. That's why it was a little difficult for me to do this. And I'll say this as I take my seat, because when they come for equity, it must come at a level of, I call it clean hands. The member for the Speaker is one who, when he came, I was glad to see him and give him a brotherly hug. Because when my grandmother, at the age of 83, was transported to New Providence, and you know, I always talk about Mama, I'm not ashamed of it at all, and needed blood at the Princess Margaret Hospital. So I tried to compose myself. The first person to give blood was Halim Mutri. And that, for me, is very personal. So it takes a lot for me today to stand up here when I didn't have no one hardly to turn to for blood for my grandmother. And looking at it in 1996, upon not so long returning from university, Halson Mutri filled that void and got other brothers from his church to come and do the same. This is not easy for me. I'm the kind of person, if I have a friend, I have a friend. If I'm loyal, I'm loyal. And so today, this hurts me. So therefore, Mr. Speaker, it's against that backdrop. I'm saddened, but I must. I'm compelled by my very nature to be honest and direct, to support my party and my leader in condemning the actions of the Speaker and supporting the motion of no confidence. And may, whatever occurs in this process, if the Speaker is to return in this honorable House, it would have been a teachable moment for him, and one that we in this Bahamas could only go forward from, and learn that we are all God's children. We all have a role to play, and that he, leading this honorable place, where laws are made under the understanding and the rubric of parliamentary democracy, must know that he is the main arbiter in that process. So we look forward, sir, after the vote would have been had, to a day, a brighter days in this honorable place, where we could continue to build a Bahamas that is all-inclusive, and where all can be equally represented, and we all can be a part of that brighter and better Bahamas as we move forward, onward, upward, together. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Chairman.
As many. As many. As many. Chair recognizes the member for West Grand Bahama and Bimini.
Mr. Deputy Speaker, I rise on behalf of West Grand Bahama and Bimini, where positive growth and development is inevitable and constituents are preparing to make it happen. Firstly, I take this opportunity to commend the Prime Minister for beginning the process of revitalizing West Grand Bahama and, by extension, the road to recovery for Grand Bahama as we brace for planned development announced earlier. Mr. Deputy Speaker, I address this chamber today with mixed emotions, stemming from the realities of where we are today as a country and as a parliament, pondering on whether or not we are truly aware of just how serious the responsibility which we hold really is. Some are, Mr. Deputy Speaker, and some are seemingly not. Mr. Deputy Speaker, the Bahamian people are tired mainly of politicians who continue to spend large portions of time spitting acid rather than speaking life into our citizens, both young and old, men and women, saved and unsaved. You see, Mr. Deputy Speaker, we are all the potter's clay in need of smoothing and molding. No one person is without a cross to bear, a habit to break, an adjustment to take place, or peace to be offered. Imperfect beings we are, but amidst all that we do, truth must not be ignored, and authority, when it is carried out in a right and just manner, defied. Today, as a member of this honorable House, being of sound mind and body, I wish to express that West Grand Bahama and Bimini has every confidence in the Speaker of this House and the authority which he holds. In the last few days, Mr. Deputy Speaker, much has been discussed regarding action taken from that chair more than a week ago and subsequent communication by the Speaker. Both were inundated with mixed reviews and heated public debate. As we are more than aware, Mr. Deputy Speaker, such debate and reaction from our citizens comes with the territory, whether good or bad, we are made to absorb it. As public servants, Mr. Deputy Speaker, we are under the microscope. It's a harsh reality. Some may say that we chose this life, but perhaps the life just chose us. Only God knows why each and every one of us in this house are sitting where we are today. Whatever the reason, we are here. Shifting gears, Mr. Deputy Speaker, while opinions were given and arguments made regarding the recent stance taken by the Speaker, lost in it all, I believe, was one unanswered question. According to the rules of this House, this book which we are made to follow, when the first suspension took place, was the Speaker guided by it? The answer is yes. Mr. Deputy Speaker, had there been the simple acceptance of authority carried out justly and a respect of that chair, today we would have been further ahead in conducting the business of the people, but here we are, addressing another issue that escalated because of one decision that was carried out in the right manner and was met with a pushback. What is the gain? And if there is one, is it really worth it? Our behavior in this place, Mr. Deputy Speaker, contributes to the behavior outside of it. What we sow in here, we will reap out there. Mr. Deputy Speaker, the Speaker is not the problem. Gutter politics is. Luckily, Mr. Deputy Speaker, the Bahamian people are stronger and wiser and will no longer settle for it from any side. Notwithstanding growing pains for all of us, including the Speaker, it's not that West Grand Bahama and Bimini, or for that matter the rest of us, can't go contrary to the rules and regulation. But in the name of country and our children, some of us choose to rise above it. Truthfully, Mr. Deputy Speaker, factual media communication will display that very rarely has members of this governing party initiated verbal grenades. It does not make us soft. It makes us sensible. Unfortunately, we have not been perfect in our aim to dart those grenades without a response similar. If only we would be so mindful of the golden rule, would this house, our community, and our country be a better place? I certainly think so. Mr. Deputy Speaker, freedom of speech carried out irresponsibly is no better than driving while intoxicated. Both can cause devastation. Mr. Deputy Speaker, we must choose love over war in many instances, respect over disrespect, hugs rather than harm. We must choose just and right authority, lest we risk inciting anarchy. Mr. Deputy Speaker, West Grand Bahama and Bimini has every confidence in the Speaker, human as he is. And I call on every single person in the Commonwealth of the Bahamas who believe in decency and order and a vision for a better Bahamas to start today by ensuring one thing, that respect of authority takes place, just and right authority. It's good for our souls and the right medicine for our ills. Mr. Deputy Speaker, you know, I note the belief by the member for Angliston that the women of the governing party may have let down women regarding the recent turn of events. While I respect the views, I want women of this entire Commonwealth to know that our voice in here is your voice. Our experiences are your experiences, whether red or gold. But amidst it all, we are all women, continuously finding our voices amidst a society that sometimes wishes for us to go against each other and invoke rivalry. Let's not allow them to. By agreeing that each and every one of us has a role to play, and that directed by God, we must obey, whether with fault or flawless. Let's recognize that learning is a lifelong process as we all aspire to lead better lives. Mr. Deputy Speaker, West Grand Bahama and Bimini, as we have done before, support the Speaker. Thank you very much.
Thank you, West Grand Bahama and Bimini. As many. The chair recognizes the member for Exumers and Ragged Island.
Thank you very much, Mr. Deputy. I rise on behalf of the resilient people of Exumers and Ragged Island to give my reasoning why I no longer have confidence in the Speaker of the House of Assembly to remain in this position. I do wish that it had not come to this. But I noted the doubling down by the member for Bamboo Town, effectively endorsing the wrongdoing of the Speaker, whilst giving him great praise. This is without question a low point for parliamentary democracy in the Bahamas. It's simply shameful, disgraceful, Mr. Deputy. I do wish that it had not come to this. The Bahamas is a country, though beautiful and vibrant, that is plagued by issues that need urgent attention. From crime to a lack of proper health care, to an education system that is desperate in need of reform, to a looming constitutional crisis with regard to immigration, to the age-old problem of illegal immigrants as illegal sloops continue to pull on the shores of our capital island, right next to the military base. We need tax reform, economic reform, constitutional reform in other respects, transportation reform, aviation reform, social reform, criminal justice reform, food security reform, ghettos that are falling apart in our inner cities litter the landscape where proud bedrocks of Bahamian society once stood. And for too long, we've focused on who is to blame and dug in without the clear dedication, in my view, that is required to move our nation forward. I want to clearly state, Mr. Deputy, that I got into politics for national service. It certainly wasn't for the pay or for what some believe are convenient hours of work or whatever celebrity or perks might come with the job. I assure all under the sound of my voice that I didn't have an interest in that. My interest was to help people, to help my island, to help my nation, to give back to the country that gave so much to me. I am thankful for every single voter and resident of Exumas, Exuma Keys, and Ragged Island, those who did and those who did not vote for me. And though this has been the opportunity of a lifetime, and an honor that stands up there with being a husband and a father, I can categorically state that I did not come to this place for this. Being in an opposition much diminished in numbers, I did not expect to move mountains in this parliament, but I intended to bring a fresh perspective, new ideas, and a message of hope, a message of action and accountability that the people of my constituency said was important to them. I intend to bring a level of clear thinking and to put pressure to bear on the current administration lest we forget what its job is and how much the people need them to function effectively. What I did come here for, what I did not come here for, was to sit and listen to affirmations of xenophobia and homophobia and twisted logic as to how women should know their place and their role, and to listen to grown men and women of honor applaud as one of their own, describe the circumstances in a relationship that prescribes when a woman should be beaten. I wept for my daughters when I heard that and the accompanying approval. I hope that my youngest grows up in her Bahamas and will find this place better than that, that the people who represent her and our older sister and brother will know better than that. I note Michael's swift apology, but no such thing of the many who endorsed her remarks, whether in their silence or otherwise. I hope, Mr. Deputy, during my time here, I can make a difference so that we will see a Bahamas that reflects better values than that. That's what I came here for, to do good, to leave the country better than I found it when I came here. I did not come here for an administration and a speaker who appear shockingly unprepared. I certainly did not come here as an adult to be treated as a child by a speaker who lectures members of parliaments in pedantic terms. And I certainly didn't come here to be suspended from the House of Assembly for simply rising from my seat withdrawing from Parliament because my parliamentary caucus did not wish to hear a most unparliamentary attack on the former chief clerk using the cover of protection of the Speaker's chair. I am still perplexed, though such is life, as to what action prompted the suspension of the entire opposition. I read Rule 88.3 in the Rules of Procedure of the House that the Speaker cited when he abruptly banished us last Wednesday. And this isn't from one of the mystery rule books whose existence the Speaker has ordered an inquiry into. I read it in the very rule that all of us received, including the Speaker, when we came here for the first sitting of this session on May 24th, 2017. The leader of this opposition has cogently litigated this issue, but some things deserve repeating. The rule states the Speaker in the House or the chairman in the committee shall order any member whose conduct is disorderly to withdraw immediately from the House or committee for any period of the current sitting not exceeding 2 sittings. I must question what the disorderly behavior was that prompted our suspension. In fact, it must be gross disorderly behavior to warrant such actions.
Dictatorial.
Is gross disorderly behavior walking away from the Speaker and withdrawing oneself from the chamber as he tore into a private citizen? Is every member of this House not allowed to come and go as he or she pleases? This isn't a prison. We still enjoy free movement. We still enjoy free speech and the basic rights that our forefathers fought so valiantly for. Should we ask the Speaker's permission to be excused for whatever reason from now on, the way we did in grade school? Should we raise our hand, or would it suffice just to pass a note? I am satisfied, Mr. Deputy. I am satisfied, Mr. Deputy, that having recognized the Speaker when leaving, that there was no disrespect or disorderly behavior, as the Speaker seemed to suggest, on this blatant overreach. The Speaker's role in parliamentary democracy is to protect the right of the minority and not to trample on them. His role is to ensure that all members, whether a minister, opposition, or the backbench, have the protection to be heard equally on behalf of the people they represent. His role as Speaker is to protect the democratic premise that the majority rules, but the minority must be heard. The Speaker must be an impartial referee, and on his election, the Speaker dropped his party flag and devoted himself to the ideal of impartiality of the chair. Now, I am advised that even facing a no-confidence vote, that the Speaker condoned the request from the governing party to wear party colors under the guise of Valentine's Day. He had an opportunity. He had an opportunity just Monday to demonstrate his capacity to be impartial and protect the sanctity of this place, yet he did not. I am happy, Mr. Deputy. I am happy that common sense prevailed, and that did not happen. I also remind members opposite that this is also Ash Wednesday, the first day of Lent, a period of self-restraint, sobriety, repentance, prayer, and self-control. So though this has stemmed from those in one party raising a complaint about the clear lack of impartiality of the Speaker, what we are doing here today is a matter for serious consideration and a need to review the actions of the Speaker through the lens of the kind of democracy we wish to promote in our country. All things stem from leadership. All systems of government, all organs of the state rise and fall under leadership at the top. Mr. Deputy, the world is watching, including the billionaire investors we hope to attract to our shores. The world is watching and passing judgment on our civility as a parliament and as a people. In any other civilized democracy, Mr. Deputy, this speaker would be gone long before a vote of no confidence is brought. Our country is watching us and passing judgment on our maturity and our seriousness as leaders. Our children are watching us and passing judgment on our tolerance for intolerance. Within this debate, I hope that given the nature of the infractions and the contents of the character of many on the other side, who I know well, some for a rather long time, I hope that I can expect that they will not be constrained by their political whip, and they will vote their conscience and take seriously that which we say, and the fact that this vote helps to shape their legacy and what they are prepared to accept and who they are and what they are to stand for as leaders. And Mr. Deputy, it has not escaped me that I have been referred to as a sympathizer. I want the record to reflect that I am an unrepentant sympathizer for democracy. This nation cannot function without a strong democracy. And if the nonsense which took place in this House over the last week or two is any indicator, we still have a long way to go to political maturity. In any event, Mr. Deputy, with the remaining time I have during this debate, let me explain why I believe the Speaker should be removed. According to Erskine May's Rules on Parliamentary Procedure, the key feature of the role of a Speaker in a Commonwealth Parliament is impartiality. And at least while holding the post during a parliamentary term, he or she is expected to be nonpartisan in their actions. Though the Speaker would probably be a member of a political party, he or she should not distinguish between government and opposition members in making decisions. And that's a quote from Erskine May's. This Speaker has proven anything but impartial, and he is unfit to facilitate the business of this House. The Speaker has shown this by engaging in a senseless, xenophobic attack by comparing his marriage to that of the leader of the opposition, the member for Cat Island, Rumpke, and San Salvador. The Speaker has also attacked those who are divorced and unmarried, and from his perch, he has sought to cast his marriage, though no one under the sun asked him to detail his personal business, as some sort of bellwether for a healthy relationship. It was absolutely ridiculous, Mr. Deputy. Ludicrous. The Speaker saw fit to launch from his chair a homophobic, unparliamentary attack. No one is interested in his sexuality or how he views the sexual proclivities of others. Again, no one asked him, and no one cares. And even if it was the subject of a debate in this parliament, how is it that the Speaker's role is to inject himself and his views that anyone's personal life, especially from the chair, is the business of this parliament? I condemn these xenophobic and homophobic slurs in the strongest possible terms. The Speaker has used his chair to publicly attack civil servants amongst his staff who are unable to defend themselves, just about all of whom served this place long before he arrived. He also used his chair to attack the retired chief clerk of the House, now a private citizen. And that man's crime was free speech. Free speech, Mr. Deputy. Daring to point out in a letter to the Ford estate that the Speaker had not followed proper procedure in suspending the member for Engliston. Free speech, Mr. Deputy. Free speech. Something evident from the monumental waste of time that occurred in this place last Wednesday. This is a travesty. And as I indicated earlier, the Speaker erred in applying Rule 88.3 and Rule 88.4. In the case of 88.3, the Speaker was acknowledged when we left the floor of the House, and he ordered us to withdraw. Well, we were leaving already, on our own accord. This act was most undemocratic, and it violated our rights as duly elected members of Parliament. The Speaker also erred. He was in error in application of 88.4 by not properly suspending the member for Engliston when he named her, and by not immediately having a motion put to Parliament. He further broke the rules by allowing debate, extensive debate, I might add, on the motion to suspend. He broke the rules of decency and democracy by allowing debate on the credit reporting bill to proceed through the passage, having willfully suppressed the official opposition, leaving an open question as to if that legislation was legally passed. The government should hope that no one challenges the constitutionality of that act before the courts when it comes into effect. It would be interesting. It would be interesting to see what the outcome of that action would be upon suppression of the opposition. The larger question is this, Mr. Speaker. The larger question is this. How can a speaker who does not understand the rules effectively carry them out? And I might add that it is a fair question to ask if the Speaker, being a trained legal counsel and attorney as he claims, was indeed ignorant of the rules he broke, or if he willfully disregarded them. Either way, Mr. Deputy, this will not do. To further demonstrate the Speaker's disregard for the rules of this Parliament last Wednesday, the Speaker would not acknowledge the member for Cat Island, Rumpke, and San Salvador, the leader of the official opposition, Mr. Deputy, when he attempted to address the House to explain where the Speaker erred regarding Rule 88.4, even though it was an appropriate time to do so, in my view. You're right. This was a transparently unconstitutional attack on freedom of speech of this House. The Speaker, in his failing to protect members inside and outside this House, has himself struck at the foundation of our democracy in a most shameful manner. Shameful, Mr. Deputy. The Speaker launched one of his attacks based on a political press release issued outside this House. The political nature of his response and the embarrassing claim by the Speaker on how he tried to get information from this House to use for political purposes was really a sad moment in the history of this chamber. This is an esteemed place. Sadder still, Mr. Deputy. Sadder still, Mr. Chairman. Those who laughed and applauded then praised the Speaker, even though they witnessed the damage he had just done. Hopefully, Mr. Deputy, a little distance from that day has let many in here see the error of their ways, and they will now vote to redeem themselves. And I call on the Honorable Prime Minister and the leader of government business to announce to all, for all to hear, that the whip is off, so that each member votes their conscience in line with their personal core values. Vote their conscience in line with their personal core values. This vote is far too important to be about political expedience. And finally, Mr. Speaker, Mr. Deputy, the Speaker recklessly allowed unparliamentary language in letting a member advocate violence, domestic violence against women no less, and let a member of this House compare the relationship of the Speaker has to a member to a marriage. I just have to honestly say once more that this is still hard to believe. This is stunning to this new member, Mr. Deputy. I am satisfied that the Speaker is guilty on all counts and deserving of a vote of no confidence on all counts. The Speaker has demonstrated himself not fit to be the non-partisan guardian of the House and all of its members. And in condescending to vile personal attacks, Mr. Deputy, the Speaker has destroyed the basis of trust in his ability to be nonpartisan. He ought to recuse himself from this high calling. We cannot unring this bell, Mr. Deputy. Colleagues, this Speaker has clearly crossed the line. This Speaker clearly has crossed the line. I have shown that this Speaker has lost the capacity to be fair and impartial. He has himself admitted in an interview in the press that he is regretful only to the point of how his actions may affect operations of the institution in terms of moving forward. If we don't put it behind us, Mr. Deputy, naturally it would be difficult to proceed in such an environment so filled with adversity. Well, the Speaker is right. He caused this. He has lost the moral authority to hold such high office. He has already established his capacity to have a mean, vindictive, and spiteful streak, unbefitting of an impartial referee. He simply does not have the temperament for the job. He has not resigned, despite being encouraged to do so by the public, and so now he must be removed. Not to remove the Speaker sets a precedent that is dangerous for democracy. And Eggleston pointed out, not to correct the record of this House has introduced into the vocabulary of this House now some very strange and troubling language. Very strange and very troubling. In addition to the Speaker's removal, we must see how we must cure the precedents that's been set by this most unparliamentary language that we observe. I therefore call on all right-thinking members from the other side who were repulsed by the Speaker's xenophobic, homophobic rant to vote with me. Anything else would be uncivilized and an affront to good governance. I call on the members opposite to search your conscience beyond the bounds of your political affiliation. Consider the message that you will send to your spouse, your children, and those who would seek to build something even stronger than we have now into the coming years. I believe if you do that, if you vote your conscience, you will see that we must move on with the Speaker, from the Speaker, and restore the work ethic, the sense of balance, and fairness to this Parliament that this democracy demands and deserves. And hopefully, Mr. Deputy, we can return to doing that which we were sent here to do. Each of us sent here to do the people's business. Now, notwithstanding the gamesmanship of the leader of government business early in this place, Mr. Deputy, notwithstanding the redundant amendments to an already clear motion, the public has no confidence in the Speaker. Exuma and Ragged Island has no confidence in the Speaker. This member has no confidence in the Speaker. The Speaker must apologize. He must apologize because it's the decent human thing to do. He must be removed because it's the right thing to do. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
As many, the chair recognizes the member for Carmichael. The member for Carmichael, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair, I was persuaded listening to my friend from Exuma and Ragged Island to just say a few words in this debate because the manner in which the speaker has been pilloried by the opposition really caused me to reflect on the reasons for this debate. Mr. Speaker, as you all are aware, today is both Valentine's Day and Ash Wednesday. And Valentine's Day, special time, and so is Ash Wednesday. Mr. Speaker, both of those days give us the opportunity to reflect, to think. Think why we are here, why members opposite are there where they are. See, Mr. Speaker, before I came here this time, before Exuma came here this time, and before members opposite suddenly got religion, respected Speaker, members in this House were subjected to the most derogatory terms, the nastiest names, and they had speakers sit there and condone the conduct. See, members were called cockroaches. No, I never heard it, didn't hear it said today. The vilest names, stamp you out. The judiciary of the country was insulted time and time again. Judges in the Supreme Court, leader of the opposition forcefully evicted. And all of you have seen the video on the internet. Police officers coming at him. And another member having to say, don't touch him. This is what our country was subjected to. This is what this parliament was subjected to. Speaker, we are different. And the reason we are here, now, and the reason they are there, is because we are different. And because the Bahamian people voted their confidence in us, and they voted their lack of confidence in members of us. Speaker, I smiled when this debate came up because I was sharing with the Prime Minister, my colleagues, how bold our Speaker is and how much he's given in his service. In comparison, I was thinking of what happens in the House of Commons in England. The tradition in the House of Commons in England is that when the Speaker is elected, the leaders on side have to grab him and drag him to his chair. That comes out of an old English tradition where when the House passed laws, the Speaker had to communicate it to the monarch. very often the speaker never came back. Was never heard of again. And so it's a very difficult thing. Speakers never wanted to. They had to elect a new speaker.
Yep.
And of course, the new speaker never wanted to be elected, never wanted to hold that post. And so those speakers had to be dragged up to sit where you are sitting now, sir. I was impressed that our speaker boldly took the stands that he took. And when he was elected, these are some of the things he said. And I quote, approximately 288 years ago, on 29 September 1729, this institution held its first meeting, and John Colebrook was elected Speaker of the House of Assembly. This commenced an unbroken line of distinguished persons to occupy this office, each one having left their mark on the institution. And then he went on to say, I assure you that I will aim high in my endeavors to ensure that the level of decorum, respect, dignity, and fidelity that has become the hallmark of this honorable house is maintained and where possible enhanced. Mr. Chairman, that's what he's done. He's maintained the dignity, the respect, and the fidelity of this house, which have become hallmarks over 288 years in this parliament. Speaker, members opposite had so much to say. And as they were talking, you know, I thought back to 9 years ago. I believe it was June 3rd, 2009. And the member for Angliston has the distinction of being the only one here in this house now who has been named twice. Twice. And as Yogi Berra said, as Yogi Berra was famous for saying, deja vu all over again. All over again. Refused to obey the law's rules then and refused to obey the rules now. Speaker, my mother always told me, you're going to deal with me? You can't deal with me. Speaker. That's the same thing you did in the last debate. That's the same thing you did in the last debate. That is why, Speaker, Mr. Chairman, that is why this member stood up in last debate. The Speaker, Mr. Chairman, my mother always told me that you can't make the same mistake twice. The first time it's a mistake. The second time it's a choice that you make on purpose.
Yes. Yes.
So, Mr. Speaker, I looked at the transcripts, I looked in the Hansard. The Speaker of this House had more patience than a Sunday school teacher. On January 31st, the Speaker had to ask Angliston to sit 10 times. On 10 occasions. Yes, you want me to read them? I wasn't going to read this, Angliston.
We know exactly what you want to become like, but we know you very well.
Angliston and I are born one day apart. You'll accept. So you said you know me very well. We know each other very well. Take it from me, on 10 occasions on the 31st, the Speaker had to ask the member for Angliston to sit. 10 occasions.
You concur.
You walked up. You walked out on that day.
10 different times. Speaker, that's the senior member of this parliament. Mr. Chairman, instead of setting an example, senior member of this parliament had to be told on 10 different occasions, take a seat. And then, Mr. Speaker, notwithstanding the rules of this House, and the rules of this House in Rule 88, 88.1 says the Speaker in the House or the Chairman in Committee of the whole House may require, not ask, may require a member to withdraw a statement. That's what the rule says. It doesn't say the Speaker asks you to withdraw. It says the Speaker requires you to withdraw. On January 24th, that same member says, I am not withdrawing, Mr. Speaker. You can be free to do whatever you want.
Yep.
Yep.
Act of civil disobedience, right?
Go back to it again.
Mr. Speaker, on January 31st, the member for Angliston, in defiance, said, I am not withdrawing. I will not withdraw. Speaker, there's an admission also in the Hansard where the member said, you asked me to withdraw it, I did not withdraw it. That's at least 3 occasions in the Hansard. Speaker has the power to require you to withdraw. And honorable members in this place, when they ask, are required honorably, as Fort Charlotte did. As Fort Charlotte did, when he was asked by Angliston, I didn't say anything when you were speaking, Cat Island. I don't know what's bothering you when I'm speaking. Okay.
Too hot. The fire is in the kitchen.
Mr. Speaker, Fort Charlotte acted honorably. And that is what we can expect or ought to expect from members of this House. That type of conduct, that if the Speaker requires you to do something, that you do it. That's what the rule says. There is supposed to be one set of rules for everybody. Not rules for the privileged elite, because you've been here 20 years on your way. Speaker, we can't say that the rules apply to everyone except us. That's not the way. That's not the way it goes. So, Mr. Speaker, I applaud the patience of the Speaker in the face of the Speaker, Mr. Chairman. I sat here and I listened to the Speaker having to sit there and being accused of ambushing a member. And being accused of targeting a member. That is conduct most unbecoming in this Parliament, Mr. Speaker. That is not the type of conduct that we should have from any member. And that is the type of conduct that has led to what we are dealing with now. Speaker, I'm going to close by reminding members what Pastor Wells said this morning. And I quote, he said, love one another.
Yes.
So I say to members opposite, in love. I'm going to say to all of you, in love.
Order. Y'all, please, for Charlotte Angliston. Please.
I say to all of you, in love. Today is Ash Wednesday. And for those of you who would have wantonly breached the rules of this House, this is the ideal opportunity to repent.
Yes.
to apologize to the Speaker and to this House so that we can move on with the business of the Bahamian people. The Speaker has been fair. He has been patient. He has been dignified. He has been honorable. He has been unbiased. But he's run a tight ship. And sometimes people can't tolerate that, Mr. Speaker, Mr. Chairman. The office of Speaker deserves respect. We on this side intend to give the Speaker respect that he deserves. Carmichael intends to give the Speaker respect. Carmichael has the greatest confidence in the Speaker, Mr. Chairman. And we support the motion has been amended. Carmichael supports the Speaker. Thank you.
Thank you, Carmichael. As many. The chair recognizes the member for Kalani.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I'll be very brief today, as time is moving along fast. I had not attended my church service this morning, and I'm hoping to get out here by 7 o'clock so that I can get my ash also. But, Mr. Speaker, I listened attentively to the member for Cat Island, Rumkey, and San Salvador, the leader of the opposition. And I was moved when he said that he would hope that the Speaker can be selected independently. And I would challenge him to that. That's the interpretation. I would challenge him to that. That the Speaker is an individual who the government and the opposition can agree upon, and that Speaker runs into a constituency unopposed.
Yep.
That's democracy. If you want to go that road, we will go that road.
Yes.
And we await your input so that we can commence parliamentary reform. Mr. Speaker, the House of Assembly is one of the oldest institutions in our Bahamas. It is at the center of our parliamentary democracy, and it has seen many challenges over the nearly 3 centuries of its existence. It has always been an adversarial arena, and our modern Constitution recognizes that fact. It provides for the functioning of a government and for an opposition to be represented here. But the traditions and the rules of Parliament demand that, however heated and intense our disagreements may be at any time, there should always be good order and standard civility. It is the role of the Speaker to ensure that the rules are observed, that fairness and a level of civility are maintained. But it is also the duty of each and every member of Parliament to respect the authority of the chair.
Yes.
And to assist the Speaker in maintaining good order at all times. It is unfortunate, Mr. Speaker, it is unfortunate that the PLP, having been roundly rejected by the people in the last election, have sought to rile up its waning support in the country by deliberately disrespecting the chair and challenging the authority of the speaker.
Unfortunate.
Leading this unworthy charge is none other than the member for Angleton. And this is not the first time she has done this. This time, Mr. Speaker, this time, perhaps she has an additional motive, which is to convince their followers, a motive to convince their followers that she would make a better leader than the current leader of the opposition.
Next convention.
I've been down that road. I can advise you. Don't jump up defending all the time. It is also not the first time, Mr. Speaker, it's also not the first time that the PLP has resorted to this kind of tactics. They did the same thing in November 2010 to the Speaker, the then Speaker, Alvin Smith.
Yep. Yep.
And you would recall that you did a similar thing to a former Speaker, no, to a former Speaker when in Seminole.
Yep.
Mr. Speaker, I wish to state clearly the values that are at the core of the FNM. I stated these values when I spoke at the installation of the new executives of the Torchbearers Youth Association just last week, Saturday. I stated that the FNM torch represents many things, but primarily the torch represents the values and aspirations of our party. It represents a commitment to the promotion of political and economic freedom. It represents equality, justice, and opportunity. Equally important, Mr. Speaker, the torch is a beacon, a great light, which beckons all Bahamians to the big tent we aspire to be. The FNM is a political home that welcomes all those who serve the cause of One Bahamas, united in love and service across our Commonwealth. This is what the founders had in mind when they chose as the party's motto, all together. Within our party, we do not create nor abide false distinctions about who is a Bahamian. We are the party committed to the equality of all, no matter the country or circumstance of one's birth or one's religious creed. We are a party that champions racial equality and is committed to a multiracial society. We are a party, Mr. Speaker, that champions gender and constitutional equality and women's rights. We are a party that successfully ran the first female for the House of Assembly. We are an intergenerational party that respects the legacy and struggle of those freedom fighters who have passed on to us a torch that must be reignited and sustained in each generation. At the very birth of our party, we formed the Torchbearers to give voice to the aspirations and energy of young Bahamians. We were the first major party in the country to create a youth organization. In this modern age, we are a party committed to diversity, tolerance, and mutual respect for individuals of different backgrounds and creeds. I told the executives of the Torchbearers at that meeting, Mr. Speaker, that they should bear this torch with pride. Bear this torch with an abiding respect for the legacy and abiding values of our party. We are a party of respect. Bear this torch in a spirit of collegiality, humility, and the ability for self-correction. Carry our message far and wide, especially to a new generation who wish to join our free national movement. I said to them, Mr. Speaker, that in whatever they do, they must always put God first. And they must always be guided by their conscience. Mr. Speaker, I conclude by reminding all that the FNM is a party that respects authority, respects law and order. In this chamber, the Speaker represents authority. And the Speaker deserves such respect. I want to remind the member who is a lawyer that in the court of law, the judge is the authority in such situations. That authority must likewise be respected. And if the member showed disrespect for that judge, she or he is charged with contempt. And that has certain penalties attached to it. We are no different. I ask the members to respect the high authority of the Speaker. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
As many. The chair recognizes the member for Cat Island, Rumkey, and San Salvador.
Yeah, Mr. Speaker, I rise to wind up this debate on a motion of no confidence, on a vote of no confidence in the Speaker. Mr. Speaker, what amended motion?
The amended. Amended.
Been amended?
Yes.
When? Check the record. When was the vote put? When was the vote put? When was the vote put? In respect, the motion was moved, but no vote was taken.
And seconded.
It was moved and seconded. No vote was taken.
Cat Island, and Rumkey, San Salvador. I take it you rise to speak on the amended motion.
I rise to speak.
Moved by Bamboo Town.
I
Cat Island, the motion was carried and seconded.
When was it carried?
It was
No,
Bamboo Town.
vote was taken.
Moved and seconded.
Was there any vote taken, Mr. Chairman?
There's no need for any vote. The motion is on the floor.
Speaker, well,
I'm guided. Well,
yeah, but Speaker, let me, first of all,
The motion, order, please, order.
okay.
Order.
Mr. Speaker,
Cat Island, Rumkey, since I just want to be clear,
yes, Mr. Speaker.
because I see Bamboo Town getting ready to stand. What are you speaking on, sir?
Speaker, I'm speaking on my motion. I heard the member move an amendment to my motion. I heard that.
Yes.
I did not, the motion was not put. And in any event, this don't speak to my motion. Huh?
He made an amendment and was seconded.
Speaker, might I invite you, Mr. Chair,
Yes.
to look at the amendment and look at my motion and then tell me where this fit, whether this speaks to my motion. I invite you to do that, sir. No. I invite you to do that.
Cat Island, Rumkey. The motion, the initial motion
Mr. Speaker.
was moved and one second, Cat Island, one second. The motion was moved by yourself
Yes.
and seconded by Angliston.
Yeah, and that was being debated.
There was no vote. An amendment was moved by Bamboo Town and seconded by Pinewood. And the debate ensued following, Mr. Speaker. I'm sorry, Cat Island.
Speaker, if that is what the view of the chair is, I then invite you to look at my motion.
Yes, I've seen.
I wish you to join with me with the motion that is in the House, on
Yes,
the
you read it earlier.
No, sir. Yes, sir. Huh? That's it. No, Mr. Speaker. No, Mr. Speaker.
Yes, Cat Island.
I don't know what this amendment speaks to, because if you read, let's read it together then. Let us all read it together.
But he read it.
Let us all read it
Remember-
together.
Order.
Speaker, this amendment speaks to a resolution, that has a word whereas. Where in my motion is the word whereas.
That's the amendment to which you wrote.
Where in my resolution do you have the word whereas
He amended that.
for everything after to be deleted and substitute by what they
He
want?
made an amendment to that resolution,
So,
and you didn't object.
I object. I stand now. I speak it now.
Cat Island, Rumkey, can you proceed on your speech, please?
Mr. Speaker,
The motion, proceed, Mr. Cat Island, proceed.
Mr. Speaker, you understand the point I make?
Carry on,
Right?
Cat.
Mr. Speaker, no, what for me? I don't have to object. Mr. Speaker,
Cat Island, Rumkey, you have the floor. Can you proceed,
Mr.
please?
Speaker, I make the point. I make the point that my resolution has no word saying whereas, and this speaks to a resolution that has a word whereas. After the first word whereas, there's none in my resolution. Delete all and follow the substitute the following. Just don't apply that. Not to my motion. I'm a speaker. It was Robert Louis Stevenson, the 19th century writer, who wrote something: sooner or later, everybody sits down to a banquet of consequences. Sooner or later. You know what, Mr. Speaker? It says everyone, but few of us may have the means to keep ahead of those consequences. But most of us don't. Mr. Speaker,
adverse consequences are oftentimes linked to the words of our mouths. Adverse consequences oftentimes linked to the words that come out of our mouths. Choices. We have the power to choose, Mr. Speaker. We choose what we may say, what we may do. You know, for example, the Speaker chose to deliberately sit and write many pages that statement contained, but wrote sufficiently. He spent, so it was deliberate. It took 40 minutes to deliver the dissertation. That was his choice. You know, and sometimes we ought to ensure that our choices should be hinged on wisdom. You know, when I say wisdom, I'm talking about wisdom with a capital W. And Mr. Speaker, you know, everyone was quoting scripture, and someone over there suggested that we just found Christianity. It was suggested. I don't say, but you know, and you know, I had anticipated the chairman to at least intervene, if only on my behalf. But you know better. You know better. I expected you to have at least tell him, hold on.
Proceed, Ken.
Right?
You and I attend the same church.
No.
And I have to kiss your wife every Sunday.
But you should know
Proceed,
better.
Ken.
You should know better, right? But, you know, the character of wisdom is in the book of Proverbs, you know. If you want to understand what the character of wisdom is all about, just check the book of Proverbs. I know what's interesting. Wisdom is characterized as a woman. There you will find wisdom as a woman. And so some of the quotes you'll find about wisdom in that book. The wise stir up knowledge. The wise stir up knowledge. The mouth of the fool hastens destruction. The wise store up knowledge, the mouth of the fool hastens destruction. I know it goes on to say something like this too. Do not forsake wisdom, and she will protect you. Love her, and she will watch over you. You know, wisdom requires us to reflect. It requires us to reflect and anticipate consequences. It's Confucius who tells us that by 3 methods we may learn wisdom. First, by reflection, which is the noblest. Second, by imitation, which is the easiest. And the third, by experience, which is the bitterest. And you know, the travesty of the last few meetings of this parliament, you know, demonstrates clearly the examples of bitter by experience. Now, Mr. Speaker, I am sorely disappointed in the member from Bamboo Town. Had high hopes, you know. High hopes
with his member. But he continually dashes. You know, he's embracing what I call the urn of disingenuity. That's what he's done.
He talking about you.
That's what he's done.
Gotta pay attention.
You know,
Say surprised at you.
I'm disappointed.
Oh, disappointed, sorry.
Not surprised. Disappointed. I had high hopes for this man, but you continue to dash my hopes, man. Continually. You ask how we got here. If somebody else had asked that question, it would have been, they would not have known. Right? And why we got here. You know why we got here.
Yeah, Alan, address it here.
This is here. He knows why we got here. The why is much ado about nothing, with which he had agreed with me. I sat and spoke with him, spent 2 hours with him. If he had hearkened, at the very least hearkened, right? At least if he'd hearkened. I spoke with the Attorney General. If he at least hearkened. That's how we got here. They are the authors.
Order. That's order. Get Alan.
Right? I spoke to the Prime Minister. All they need to do is address the issue. That's how we got here. That's why we're here, Mr. Speaker. Right? And this is not about the member for Angleton. This is about the Speaker and his conduct. That's what we're about. That's what it's about. And so it's rather strange that I'm hearing read by the member of Bamboo Town that this Speaker has restored the honor, dignity, and respect due to the high office of Speaker. I heard him read something to that effect. Really? I wonder if he is hearing what others are saying outside of this house. I wonder. I laid on the table today the articles, headline in the Guardian this morning. Where's it? It's up there.
This table.
Well, hide it.
This table.
Disgrace. The Tribune of this morning. Now.
Order, young girl. Please. Carry on, Cat Island. Rumkey in San Salvador.
See, Speaker, you know, I will not follow the line that the Speaker does, because, you tell him something.
Carry on, Cat Island, Rumkey.
I'll just stay, right, Mr. Speaker. Right, that's what he read, right? And then, Mr. Speaker, no, I had to talk that because you want to know how we got here. I needed to let the public, the court of public opinion know that I moved to pursue this matter in peace. You, the government, rebuked it. That's why we're here today. And Mr. Speaker, I also heard the member say something about natural justice. The Speaker opposed natural justice. I wonder if they understand what natural justice is. Sometimes it's an esoteric thing, it's instinctive. Got to be in you. You know when things are not fair. It's almost instinctive. But there are some other principles that's been enunciated by what is natural justice. The rule against bias. The Latin phrase is nemo judex in causa sua, right? You can't be the judge in your own cause, right? And here it is, you had the Speaker who judging the member for Angleton, he is the investigator, he is the prosecutor, and he is the judge, and then maligning this member, and you say that's natural justice? You all heard him. Not one of you stood up to remonstrate that what you're doing, Mr. Speaker, is wrong. He investigated, he prosecuted, he judged, and what is more damning to the exercise, what's more damning to the exercise, he did that without employing the other limb, or the other, what they call, principle of natural justice. And that is the duty to at least be heard. And the Latin phrase for that is ordae alteram partem. Right? And you all sit right here. Lawyers are here. I mean, and you don't need to be a lawyer to have an instinct of what justice is. You don't have to be a lawyer to understand what has to be fair. That's instinct. It's innate. And there it is. You sat here, watched the speaker, as I said, investigate, prosecute, and then judge this member, and now you're going to say he's upholding natural justice. Mr. Speaker, and guess who's reading that? The member for Bamboo Town. My Lord. You know, in light of all I've said, Mr. Speaker, if all what has been, I don't have no time. You know that? I wrap it up. I can speak till 12 o'clock tonight.
Don't do that. Don't do that. I'm Ken Allen Rumkey. Let's address the chair, please.
Don't do that, sir.
Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, in light of the record of this House as it relates to this matter, right, if it is the view of the majority that the Speaker embodies what I just said, we have come to an all-time low, morally. The public, the court of public opinion, got the clear impression, and is getting the clear impression, that the moral and ethical underpinnings of the men and women who support this government are loose and weak. Loose and weak. Right? But I thank God for public opinion. No. Yeah. I thank God for public opinion. And the case will be continued to be put in that court. You know, and I'm just addressing what the member for Bamboo Town said. You see, if you don't understand something, Mr. Speaker, I invite you to seek an understanding.
Order.
Because, misunderstanding could lead to buffoonery. And that's where you found yourself. And, Mr. Speaker, Mr. Chairman, when you don't understand and embark on a discourse on that which you don't understand, it's dangerous and reveals the true content of your character. You clearly did not, nor cared to take the time to understand the press release of the chairman of our party. His press release basically was a a salutary warning to us all who are in power. Right? It was a salutary warning. And the warning was rooted in historical events involving two prominent peacemakers, Gandhi and Martin. It was a complete misappreciation of a peaceful movement and its association with civil disobedience. The authorities, that is, those in power, yourselves, was feeling threatened by the peaceful movement for social justice. They were feeling threatened. And the provocation came out of the response by the authorities. And their responses to the movement and how it was perceived these two peacemakers were being treated or handled. That's what led to civil disobedience. It's a complete misappreciation. And what was being said, we have to be careful as to how we deal with our people, what we're doing, because otherwise, the way you treat persons, how you respond to people, could create a provocative perception that could lead to civil disobedience. And so the salutary warning is, look, measure your responses. Measure your treatment of persons. Otherwise, history has shown what could happen. That's the message. And if you didn't understand that, or you didn't get to read and understood the historical context, that's what you could do. Right? Yeah. Well, at least, you know, Mr. Chairman, he acknowledged that somehow, we didn't know when, we didn't know how, but he did acknowledge that the Speaker was provoked and the Speaker reacted. The question is, and that's what we are dealing with, the reaction. Right? Did he react appropriately? Did he react with the tolerance and the decor and demeanor that is expected of a speaker? We say no, and I dare say public opinion is on our side in that regard, despite the mathematics that's here. Right, the Speaker? Despite it. And so, you know, because it would have been helpful, member from Bambutown, if you could tell us, this, through the chair, it would have been helpful if we would have known when it was this provocation took place. Because, you know, there's something called a cooling off period. If you do something at the moment of provocation, right, you could call that in aid as mitigating circumstances. But if you get provoked last week and then you react today, it's no longer a mitigating circumstance because you would have had time to cool off. And so it would have been helpful if, in defense of this provocation that somehow was acknowledged by the member for Bambutown, if you proceeded to let us know something with those things. But we don't know. All right, now, you know, Pine Ridge, you know, Solomon, and this, I call it a Solomonic approach to this matter, did remind, I don't remember who he cited, but he spoke of someone talking about all of us sinning. All have sinned, and all that. But you know, I prefer the St. John the Evangelist version of it. That speaks, if you have no sin, if you say you have no sin, you deceive yourself. But if you confess your sins, faithful and he's just. Right? And that's what we would have expected from the speaker, because you're all over there saying, you know, he has no sins, but you all are, all of you who sit here, or sat there then, and sit here today, sat here on the 7th of February, sit here today, are deceiving yourselves, because he has in fact sinned, and you were complicitous in it by the slamming on the door and the applauding.
Is there no sin on your side? That's what the thing speaks
This
about.
is about,
there no sin on your side?
And so, Mr. Speaker,
Order.
and so, Mr. Speaker, Mr. Speaker, I don't expect any backlash. They could carry on. I mean, you know, Mr. Speaker,
Not them,
not
no sin on that side.
not one, this government has not provided one scintilla of evidence and information to support, to refute what I call our charges against the Speaker. All they've attempted to do is to continue to broadside the member. And you know, and the truth of the matter is that she is a fierce advocate for the downtrodden and the least amongst us. And if you were to look at every time there is a post that she is to be named, it was because of some egregious fact that she sought to have answers to. The one that they spoke about, a 15-year-old died in police custody, and she was trying to get an answer, which was not forthcoming. And she was speaking on behalf of mothers. Right? And this time, right? And this time, she was speaking on behalf of two women who were fired, unsubstantiated. The minister confirmed it now. The minister has confirmed it, so don't go down that road. Right, Mr. Speaker, the two women, she was standing up again for the rights of poor Bahamians. Poor Bahamians she was standing up for. She stood up because two women were fired by this government.
No evidence.
Right?
No
on the basis of their political persuasion.
No evidence. No evidence.
Order.
No evidence.
Order.
No evidence.
No, Mr. Speaker.
The point of order. Please yield, get at him. And Chair recognizes the member for East Grand Bahama.
Once again, Mr. Speaker, the member is continuing to mislead this House with facts that they are introducing without any substantiation. I've heard it several times today in the presentations. And this is what got us into this issue in the first place, Mr. Speaker. They cannot keep reading into the record by stealth this accusation that they continue to make. So unless they have the proof, Mr. Speaker, they have to withdraw it or please, don't be intellectually dishonest.
One second, get at him. We're not going to allow this to... Cat Island, the chair is guided on the fact that...
No, Mr.
Just 1 second, Cat Island.
Yes,
let the chair speak. The chair is guided on the fact that the Speaker caused that information to be struck from the records because it was enabled, because the member from Angleston was not able to substantiate. And I think that's the point that the member for East Grand Bahama is...
No, I'm saying it now. I'm saying it now because it has now been established. First of all, Mr. Speaker, at that time, I can say it because I spoke to the Prime Minister. He told me they will not be fired. I sent him emails about what was being told to them
debate is
by
about that
by
time, not this
by,
time.
by those members. I
debate is
refreshed his
about-
memory
this debate is about
when he
Yes.
came back, Mr.
times
Speaker,
and-
right?
Order,
Mr.
order.
Speaker,
So
what I'm pointing out, Mr.
Yes,
Speaker,
yes, Get out.
is that every time the member spoke, it was for a just cause representing ordinary Bahamians who are being impacted in this place, right, Mr. Speaker? And then, but for the Prime Minister to suggest that 10 times he stood up, well, you can't blame the member for getting up 10 times, right? You can't. Whoever said 10 times? Sorry, whoever said it? Who said it? 10 times? The Speaker. First of all, if the Speaker is doing his job is to recognize a member. Once that member is recognized, he is to hear that member. The book is right there in front of you. No, he is, the chair cannot not recognize a member once he rises. He cannot.
order,
That's why
order,
we had three. That's why we had three books.
order,
Speaker.
order.
There.
Mr. Speaker,
why we had
he
three books
cannot
right there.
not recognize a member. First of
That's
all,
why we had three books.
rule, it starts, the genesis of it, if you look, it's in Mays, because if the rules of our house do not clearly speak to it, you can look at Mays. But if you go to the rules of the House of Assembly, Section 8, that is in 1974 rules, this is what it says for members opposite. That the member who first rises to speak be heard first. Right? Coming from there, you go to Rule 33.
Who in the opinion of the speaker?
No, that's, no.
And that's,
You're always going to leave out them little facts.
No, Mr. Speaker. Let me,
Carolyn, I think I did actually read that section.
Yeah, right, okay.
When I think Pine Ridge stood.
right. So, but that only applies when two members stand. Look, your opinion arises if you have two members standing. If you don't have two members standing, your opinion doesn't arise. You have to recognize the member who's standing, who rises.
And Carolyn, one order. Finish your contribution, Carolyn. Yeah, finish your contribution, Carolyn.
So, Mr. Speaker, I'm saying, so there's no right in the Speaker not to recognize a member. Because if he has that right, that is a tool to not protect the right of free speech, but a tool to quash.
Carry on, Carolyn. Order. Let's carry on, Carolyn.
It's a tool to quash, to silence members, rather than a tool to facilitate members from speaking. And that's why I read the rule from 74 and read the present rule that you have. So the opinion will not arise. The opinion will not arise. So when you look at the rule, whoever stands first is heard. Whoever stands first must be heard. And you'll only know if he... Mr. Speaker,
Carry on, Carolyn. Carry on.
let me just take...
Order.
Let me just take them to another rule, right? First of all, so let me take you to another rule.
What's the order? What's the order of business?
Speaker, another rule. Right?
What's the order of business, Carolyn?
Speaker,
Listen, man, this is
I'm
only a
pointing out
filibuster.
how the...
Order. Carolyn has the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm telling you, I have to lecture you because you don't know. Mr. Speaker, the other rule is that if the Speaker, see what happens is, if the Speaker apprehends disorder, the tool he uses is not to name the member immediately. The tool he uses is to suspend or adjourn the House, suspend the House for a few minutes, or adjourn it. That's Rule 84. So that's what he can do, right? That's what he does. Another rule, the other rule, see, it's the facilitation of the rights and privileges of members. You could, if you read it one way, if you want to read it where you restrict and constrain those rights, fine. But I'm just explaining that there's the other rule, Rule 32, that requires the speaker to stand. He stands, when there's disorder, he stands up. We all sit down and be quiet. Those tools were never used by the speaker. So the speaker, there are any number of tools, right, short of suspending, short of naming, to enable the facilitation of a member exercising the ancient rights and privileges that has been dawned on them from day one. The speaker. And so if you just look at the rules, they're right there. He never stood. He never brought to our attention, well, there's disorder in the place. He sat right there and came down in the well, which he ought not to have done. And so, Mr. Speaker, you know, the member for Carmichael, when he spoke about the speaker in the House and being dragged, you know, it was Sir John Bussey, who was beheaded in 1399 by Henry IV as a speaker, right? And it just became a sort of a tradition to remind the speaker of his role, right? Yeah, yeah. The speaker, I end up by the speaker. You know, I think it was Clarence Darrow, a trial lawyer, famous trial American lawyer, who said, "We now come to the place. This case is now in the hands of the jury. I go, my jury, I go to, is the court of public opinion. And I think the court of public opinion will provide a verdict of guilty on all counts." And what are those counts again? I think court of opinion will say, on count 1, a statement made to the House on the 7th of February in response to we do not know what? Guilty. 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 Count 2, the unlawful, wrongful, capricious, arbitrary, and disproportionate suspension of the Member of Parliament for Eglinton on the 31st of January. Guilty. Count 3, the willful, malicious, and personal attacks on private citizens in his statement of the 7th of February in the House. Guilty. Guilty. Count 4, attacking the staff of the House of Assembly. Guilty. Count 5, disgracing the role and reputation of the House, office of the Speaker of the House. Guilty. Guilty. And Mr. Speaker, guilty on all counts. We say guilty on all counts. Guilty on all. And this is not a matter of mathematics. It's a matter of doing what is right. I thank you.
Oblige, Your Island, Ramkit, Salvador. As many. Order that the amended resolution be brought up. Ordered that the amended resolution do lie on the table. Up.
I point out a deficiency in what was handed up. Has that been corrected?
Ken Island, the chair has already indicated that there was an amendment to the resolution that was seconded and debate ensued. The chair now wishes to now put the question on the amendment to the resolution, and I would read for clarity just only the first, second, and last paragraph of the resolution. And whereas the Member of Parliament for Nassau Village, the Honorable Halson Moultrie, has, since his election as the 54th Speaker of this Honorable House on the 24th of May 2017, restored the honor, dignity, and respect due to the high office of Speaker of this Honorable House And whereas the Honorable Mr. Speaker, in the conduct of the business of this Honorable House over the past 8.5 months, has consistently displayed fairness, judicious deliberation, even-handedness, and a fair determination to uphold the highest standards of conduct and decorum on the part of each honorable member of this House, without regard as to which side of the House the member supports, and recalling that the members of the opposite side displayed flagrant disregard for the rules of the House and the ruling made by the Honorable Speaker in an unparliamentary display of arguing and consistently interrupting the Speaker on the one hand, and standing in open defiance of the Speaker's ruling on the other hand, contrary to the rules of this House and established parliamentary practice, and thereby sought to disturb the House when they could not dissuade, to distract when they could not dictate, and to distort the records of the proceedings of this House when they could not defend their own records. Now be it hereby resolved that this House has confidence in the Speaker, the Honorable Howson Moutrie, and that he be invited to resume his chair. As many members that are in favor of the amended resolution will remain seated. Those opposing will rise. The amendment to the resolution.
Chairman, we ask the division of the House. Rule 61.
I order that a division of the House be taken. Mr. Clark.
Three. Absent. Desmond Bannister.
Don't get itchy, man.
Carlton Bolag. Frankie Campbell.
That's a yes? That's a yes, thank you.
Shannon Dawn Cartwright.
Yes.
Reese Chipman. Chester Cooper.
No.
Dionisio de Aguilar.
Can we, members, can we have some, let me have quiet. This is very important. Let's be quiet and hold all comments for later. Carry on, Mr. Clark.
Dionisio de Aguilar.
I have his proxy.
Absent.
Exuma.
Marvin Dames. Philip Davis.
Nope.
Chanel Ferguson. Ramal Ferreira.
Yes.
Picewell Forbes.
No.
Michael Folks.
Yes.
Adrian Gibson. Glennis Hannah Martin.
No.
Darren Henfield.
Yes.
Mark Humes.
Yes.
Ellsworth Johnson.
Yes.
Hank Johnson.
Definitely yes.
Iram Lewis.
Yes.
Jeff Lloyd.
Yes.
Ricky Markey.
Angliston.
Frederick McAlpine.
Angliston.
Absent.
Yeah, but this is...
Vaughn Miller. Hubert Minnis. Lakeisha Parker Edgecombe. Michael Pintard. Ruben Ramming. Miriam Rackley Emmanuel. Travis Robinson.
Yes.
Lanisha Roll. Bransel Roll. Dwayne Sands. Donald Saunders. Brent Simonet.
Yes.
Peter Turnquest. Renwood Wells.
Honorable members, the results of the division of the House, the yeas, 26, the nays, 4, abstaining, 1, and absent members, 7. I think the results are very clear. And I read again, just a final note. Now be it hereby resolved that this House has confidence in the Speaker, the Honorable Howson Moultrie, and that he be invited to resume his chair. The motion that the Speaker now take the chair. Okay. It's being moved and seconded that the Speaker now do take the chair. As many as in favor again will remain seated. Those opposing will rise. The Speaker will now take the chair.
Honorable members, when the Speaker vacated the chair, we read the order of business, statements, and communication by ministers. Just before we proceed, I wish to make the following statement. First of all, I want to recognize that God is good all the time. And all the time, God is good. I thank God for this learning experience. I thank the wonderful people of the Nassau Village constituency for electing me to this honorable place. To my wife and family, I am grateful for your love and support. There is wisdom in many counselors. And I want to thank Bishop Delton Fernando and the Bahamas Christian Council for timely intervention and for spiritual advice on forgiveness, peace, and reconciliation. I also want to thank our chaplain, Pastor Wells, and my best friend from Great Inagua, Archdeacon James Palacios, and Pastor Mario Moxie for their brotherly love and advice. And I'm grateful to the many persons who have called or visited my home since this circumstance began for your prayers and your advice. And last but not least, and by no means least, I am indeed grateful to my parliamentary colleagues for your expressions and vote of confidence. I want to adopt the words of King David found in the 51st Psalm, verses 2 and 3. And it goes like this: wash me thoroughly from mine iniquity, and cleanse me from my sin. For I acknowledge my transgressions, and my sin is ever before me. On the 24th of May 2017, upon being elected the 54th Speaker of this Honorable House of Assembly, I pledged to exercise dignity, decorum, and impartiality by upholding the honor of our institution. I pledge to protect the rights and privileges of all members without fear or favor. I also pledge to uphold and enforce the rules of procedure of the Honorable House of Assembly. I have always been a passionate, patriotic Bahamian. I want the best for all Bahamians, and I believe that all Bahamians should be given the opportunity to maximize their potential. I further recognize that the advancement of our people and the development of our nation is stymied by failed and failing systems. For many years now, I have dedicated my life to effecting systemic change within the Bahamas. In my estimation, the greatest challenges facing our nation are lawlessness, disobedience, disrespect for authority, and refusal or failure to function within constraints of established rules and regulations. Ironically, the events that led to these unfortunate and regrettable set of circumstances found their genesis in my 31st of January 2018 efforts to enforce the rules of procedure and to demand respect for the chair in this honorable house. This resulted in the suspension of the member for Angleton. What followed could not be predicted. My wife and I were attacked as I was labeled a misogynist, and my character, integrity, and competence were publicly castigated and or questioned by a former co-worker. Notwithstanding, my response from the chair was not an appropriate response. I am indeed very sorry that it occurred, and that it precipitated the bitterness and resentment that followed. In the constituency that I represent, I was called everything but a child of God. And my wife and my family remain under attack in various media. But all is forgiven, even though some say they didn't ask for forgiveness. All is forgiven. I understand the purpose and the spirit in which those undignified and ungracious adjectives were used, and the political motive that caused them to continue. But as an ordained minister of God, I understand that God is doing a new thing. On this Valentine's Day, God has given us the opportunity for a fresh start. If we rely on or refer to the book of Isaiah in the 43rd chapter, verse 18, the Bible reminds us and advises us not to remember the former things, nor consider the things of old or the past. Behold, God says, I'm doing a new thing. Now it shall spring forth. Shall you not know? I will even make a road in the wilderness and rivers in the desert. I was wrong for getting into the flesh. I used the scripture. We wrestle not against flesh and blood, but against principalities and spirits in high places. But I allowed myself to get into the flesh and out of character on the 7th of February 2018. And I said things that I should not have said. I realize now that some of my words were hurtful and that some words opened the door to be construed in a way that they were not intended. And the member for Cat Island, Rum Cay, and San Salvador would know, who know me for years. We share a mutual best friend. He is fully aware that I didn't intend to attack his wife. That is just not the kind of person I am or want to be. Every day, my wife and I, we say the Lord's Prayer to end our morning devotions. But alas, I am not a perfect man, but I'm trying to get there. I've already expressed my forgiveness in the past few days to those who felt that I wronged them. And my family and I, we are at the stage of our lives now where we recognize the value in relationships. My pride will not stand in the way of my love for the relationships that I've engendered over the years. And my country, this Bahamas, my pride will not stay or stand in the way of God's purpose for my life. I did not ask for this job. As a matter of fact, I told the Prime Minister on a number of occasions that this is a lonely, isolated job. But I believe that I was chosen for this job for such a time as this. It is important to me and to our children that we show them that we can agree to disagree, but in an agreeable way. Honorable members of the minority party, you are an important plank in our developing democracy. The Parliament has voted an expression of confidence in your humble servant by majority. And I think we are all reasonable men and women who are able to reason together in the best interests of the institution of this Parliament and our nation. I have already forgiven you. And I say, let us now seek reconciliation together so that we can get on with the people's business. We should always strive to do our best. We owe that much to the people who elected us and who have confidence in us serving in this place. I have no doubt that we all who serve in this parliament love our nation. We demonstrate this with passion when we pursue your very best interests. Passion, however, must be tempered with an unfailing restraint. By restraint, we avoid offenses. Injured feelings often than not are born out of a prideful heart. And with a contrite heart, then, I assure all members of our beloved nation, all members and our beloved nation, that Her Majesty's loyal opposition can surely rest its confidence in my commitment to the following ideals. One, the enforcement of the rules of procedure of this honorable House. Two, protection of the rights and privileges of every member in this House, particularly those of the minority. And three, the protection of all of the ancient privileges of this Parliament. All I ask is that all members be mindful of their obligations to the chair. Members should also be mindful of the chair's obligation to the House, and I remind myself of that constantly. This House, as it is presently comprised of 39 equally entitled members. If the good relationships we are endeavoring to establish here today between the chair and each member is to survive, there has to be an ebb and flow in respect that we show to each other. No one member is entitled to more attention than any other member. This was my approach from the very first day that I took this chair. I serve at the pleasure of the House, and I am thankful today that the House has expressed confidence for me to carry on in this regard. You know, as I sat in the room, I was moved to tears when I listened to my brother from Central Andres. Because I know my brother from Central Andres know me well enough to know that what I was being accused of is not my character. I realize that he has an obligation to the party that he serves, and that he is compelled to do what he did today. But I want you to know, my brother, I do not hold it against you, nor do I hold it against any member of Her Majesty's loyal opposition. In fact, what Her Majesty's loyal opposition did today in following the rules was all I was trying to achieve all along with respect to the chair. The rules clearly state that if you are aggrieved by the ruling of a chair, you respond not with a debate or in a disrespectful way to the chair. You respond by bringing a substantive motion that was brought here today. That's all we need to do. And we can get the kind of decorum and respect if we are prepared to function according to the rules. I want to assure all members of Her Majesty's loyal opposition that my door as Speaker is always open. I have never, ever rejected any approach to seek to discuss any issue or to bring reconciliation. And that position will not change. I pledge to remain free from partiality of any sort. My simple request to all members that is in your spirited discourses, please respect the chair and try to keep your provocations to a minimum. Unlike other members, the speaker's mic is always open. The speaker is always on the floor. And even when a member is not on their feet or recognized by the chair, the speaker is not hard of hearing. The speaker can hear comments and insults being hurled at the chair, especially when those comments and insults come from close proximity. The speaker has a right to be heard over all members. And as I close, I just want to remind everyone that the speaker's responsibility is to enforce the rules of the House. To carry out this function, the speaker is invested with certain powers that have evolved over centuries. These include authority to ask members to be quiet so the member recognized can be heard, to direct a member to withdraw remarks if, for example, they use abusive language or make unsubstantiated assertions that impute improper motives. The Speaker has the authority to suspend the sitting of the House due to serious disorder and to suspend MPs who are deliberately disobedient or disrespectful to the chair, either by requesting that that member withdraw from the House or by naming the member. When the authority of the chair is challenged, the Parliament loses not only time, but the gravity of the deliberations. And I would want members, as we proceed forward, to honor the rules and regulations of this House. And I therefore now urge the chairman of the Rules Committee to convene a meeting of the Rules Committee at its earliest convenience to settle upon a single or singular rule or manual for the conduct of business in this honorable House. And finally, it is my estimation that if we look for the good, there is good in this situation. And I see one good that can be gleaned from all of what has transpired. I believe that if we want more of our women to enter frontline politics, we have got to raise the bar and create a political environment very different from the one that I witnessed recently. We need a political culture devoid of mudslinging, an environment where our women are protected, where ladies feel safe from smear and undignified insults of the kind that I received in Nassau Village only a few days ago. We have to open the opportunities for more of our ladies to participate in this honorable chamber. Honorable members, you have my solemn undertaking that I will do my humanly best not to repeat the incidents of the 7th of February 2018. Communications by the clerk. Messages from the Governor General. Messages from the Senate. Motions for leave of absence, leave to resign seat, and new writs. Presentation of petitions. Presentations of reports of committees. Adoption of reports of committees. First reading of bills. Second reading and committal of bills. Committee of the whole House. Third reading and passing of bills. Consideration of Senate amendments. Resolutions. Member statements. The chair recognizes the honorable member for Angliston.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I rise this evening on a member statement segment to pay tribute to a lady, Dorothy Marshall, who was buried on Saturday at the age of 95 years of age. And she was, in truth, a truly amazing woman. She would have been involved in the early struggle for freedom of our people. She would have been amongst the first women to vote in 1962. She was a stalwart counselor for the Progressive Liberal Party. She understood the ideals of this organization. She understood the commitment of this party for the upliftment of our people and the history of our party in terms of how it has brought our people from oppression and bondage to a modern state. And she was, in fact, an inspiration to me, Mr. Speaker, because well, I can't say she taught me, but at times when I felt sort of weary, she reminded me what my obligation is as a member of this House and a member of frontline politics in this country. And she reminded me that I should always maintain a commitment to advance the cause of the people that I represent without fear, without favor, that I should do so without compromise, and that I should be courageous at all times in the advocacy on behalf of the people that I represent and the Bahamian people in general. And her death, her recent death, was felt very greatly by me because she was a great Bahamian woman and was exemplary or an exemplar in terms of who we are as the Bahamian woman, the story of the Bahamian woman, the beautiful story of the courageous, principled, strong woman, Bahamian woman, who sacrificed over the years to advance their family, the community, and the country. And this was the life of Dorothy Marshall. And so I want to pay a tribute to her life, which I truly appreciate, and to extend condolences to her family there on Podolio Street. The entire neighborhood felt her loss because she, even in her advanced years, 95, was a thoroughly modern woman, thoroughly modern. And for me, even in the latter days in her 90s, continued to inspire me in my quest. And then finally, Mr. Speaker, I just want to raise to the fore the continuing concerns of the people of Angliston and the issues they continue to face, those of joblessness and the very important critical need to create employment for our people. I want to point out that of the 2,500 that were fired, many of them were from the Angliston community, and they've added now to the unemployment numbers in Angliston. I want to speak to I want to admonish or to underwrite the importance of the Department of Social Services in responding in a timely fashion to the needs of vulnerable people, so that people are not waiting months for basic assistance, because the need is great in many households, and I want to urge a greater sensitivity to people who come. Because Bahamians generally, in my experience, do not come with their hand out begging. When they come, and men are coming now, when they come, it's because there is genuine need. And so I want to urge a an enhanced sensitivity and a more efficient processing and management of people who are vulnerable in the Angliston community. And so, Mr. Speaker, I think that would be it in a nutshell. I just take my seat just in memory of the late, great Dorothy Marshall. May her soul rest in peace.
Thank you, Honorable Member. For the member statements, the chair recognizes the Honorable Member for East Grand Bahama.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I would like to express condolences on the passing of Ms. Pet Roberts from High Rock, a teacher who contributed much to this country through education. Certainly was a strong supporter of mine, and so I want to express condolences to her family, to Lady Iris and Bishop Williams, and the entire family, Roberts family. Mr. Speaker, too, I want to express happy Valentine's Day wishes to the people of East Grand Bahama. And finally, I want to advise the members of Sweetings Key that there is a town meeting on Sunday at 1 p.m. At the schoolhouse, and so I invite them all to be there to get first-hand updates on all that has happened in the last couple of weeks. Thank you.
Thank you. Further member statements? The chair recognizes the Honorable Member for a Central Grand Bahama.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I stand here to offer condolences to the members of the Church of Ascension in Freeport on the passing of Father Michael Giddens, who will be laid to rest this weekend. He's a very dear friend to me and my family, and I'm a Baptist, but having visited his church with my now wife, I became pretty much a member. We are pretty much mourning his great loss, and our Deputy Prime Minister is also a member of that church. And I just want to say to all of the members that we are all feeling a sense of great loss. And may the immediate family of Father Michael Giddens, may they find peace and comfort. And may his soul rest in peace and one day rise in glory. Thank you.
Thank you. The chair recognizes the Honorable Member for Tall Pines.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'll be very brief. I was asked by the members of Tall Pines to just say on their behalf to the government of the Bahamas in particular, the Minister of the Environment, the Minister of Environment, the member for Marathon, the member for Seabreeze, and Minister of Social Services, and the Minister for Mount Moriah, Minister for National Security in particular, and the Minister of Health, and member for Elizabeth. As the nation would be aware of the incidents that we've had in the last few weeks with the fires at the landfill, that now being under control, many members, notwithstanding what they would have went through for that 2 weeks, they nonetheless would wish that I thank the government in general, but particularly those ministries, particularly the hardworking people at the landfill, for fighting so hard to bring that fire down and completely out. The members of the fire branch of the police force for their dedication and their hard work. The Minister for Social Services and her parliamentary secretary, the parliamentary secretary for Golden Isles. When I called, they and their members were very helpful in securing residents, persons who were in need, and obviously the help we got from the Ministry of Health. So, Mr. Speaker, I want to say that while we are still concerned, we're very happy in the progress that the government is making in regards to securing management for the landfill. But we simply want to say thank you and to say that we look forward in the coming weeks, as the Minister has promised, his visit to our town hall meeting to address the issue in totality. Speaker, I also wish to thank the honorable members in this House for the gratitude, respect they've shown me a few minutes ago. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you. The chair recognizes the honorable member for West Grand Bahama and Bimini.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Love is a splendid thing, and I wish to send hugs and kisses to my constituents of West Grand Bahama and Bimini during these final hours of Valentine's Day, to let them know that I appreciate and love each and every one of them, and to ask them to prepare, Mr. Speaker, for what is coming. Mr. Speaker, we have had a group of students from the Louise McDonald High School as well as Gateway Academy travel into Grand Bahama to take part in our sports. And I wish to thank all of those persons who would have contributed to that and ask that we pray for their safe travels. Mr. Speaker, West Grand Bahama and Bimini is indeed grateful to all that continue to pray for us. And we just want to send love to the entire Bahamas on behalf of all of the constituents and let you know that we love you, Commonwealth of the Bahamas.
Thank you, honorable member. The chair recognizes the honorable member for Mangrove Key, South and Central Andros.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Just wanted to say to my dear constituents, on the 22nd, which is next Thursday, there'll be a political meeting, I think it is, or maybe a public, I'm not quite sure, but I was asked to announce it, on land matters next Thursday in the community of South Andros proper, and they will get further information via the community announcements. Also, I want to say a special thank you to the Lundy Foundation for the awards ceremony last week at the South Andros High School, and I want to commend especially the patriarch of that foundation, Mr. Malachi Lundy. We call him Malachi Lundy from High Rock in South Andros, he and his family for that great gesture to that community. Also to Senator T. Ricardo Wiley, like I mentioned earlier, the National Awards ceremony at the opening of the South Andros Public Library, to all the principals and all the students who attended, Principals Stewart, Raming, King, Duncombe, Roll, and all the other students who attended from the districts of South Andros and Mangrove Key. I want to say thanks to them all, wishing the very best, especially those who are in their final year of secondary education. Also, Mr. Speaker, in life there is death, and I can't help but note that we must, as we commiserated and were saddened by the passing of Stalwart Councillor George Knowles, we extend our love from the Progressive Liberal Party on behalf of our great leader to the family of the late George Knowles, Stalwart Councillor, especially to his daughter, as he was buried on Saturday past at the historic Ebenezer Methodist Church on East Shirley Street. And also, on Sunday past, I had a great observance as I thought about my good friend and mentor, the late Dr. B.J. Nottage, as I sat at the historic St. John's Native Baptist Church on Meeting Street at the 61st Men's Day anniversary, along with my parliamentary colleague and parliamentary secretary and the member of parliament for Bain and Grand Slang Robinson was also there. It was a very historic occasion to see we're still celebrating men, and I want to commend Reverend Elliston Smith in a meaningful way, the great among the men that turn out, and also to the president of this great society, Reverend Dr. Karen S. Pinder, and President Emeritus Dr. Michael C. Simonet. And at the constituency level, once again, I want to thank the member for Southern Shores for gracing our presence in the Mangrove Key district, sir. And we are glad that you would have come, and you would have heard the challenges of local government and the fiscal outlay and challenges that they face in that community. That is not unique to Mangrove Key, but my entire, especially Mangrove Key in South, Central. Things are a little better in Central community when it comes to the financial outlay of things generally. South Andros, Mangrove Key roads, the port of entry issues, we're dealing with still. And in South, the Minister of Works is still here. We still wait for the completion of the reverse osmosis and the potable water system in South Andros, our gymnasium, and also the playing field in that community of South Andros that have started. And there's been a little slowdown in that whole process, and our people are asking and texting me and asking me how's the process, how we're going to move, when we're going to move forward with the process. But I'm grateful that Mr. Emil Knowles is on the ground, Mr. Speaker, and we see the repair works that are taking place in South Andros along the road. I thank you, sir, Carmichael. And all is forgiven. I move on. So the day of love, all is forgiven. He knows exactly what I'm talking about. I say all is forgiven. I'll leave it there. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for this opportunity.
Thank you. The chair recognizes the honorable member for Centerville.
The Speaker just wanted to stand on behalf of the people of Centerville, and I want to It must have been a challenging day for you, but it was also a very challenging day for us. Senator wants to say that we appreciate that you would have apologized. We also appreciate your remorse, because that was also very important to people. We voted yes, because you're known character to this party, and that in itself is substantial. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Further member statements? Appointment of select committees? Instructions to select committees? Discharge of select committees? Notices for future meetings? Notices for future meetings?
Standing in the name of Her Majesty's loyal opposition, remain. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Any notices from the government side?
Thank you, Mr.
Chair
Speaker.
recognizes the honorable member for Bamboo Town.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The Prime Minister wanted to get to church by 7, so I want to say on behalf of all of the other members, I was asked to do it. For those who were not able to say Happy Valentine's Day to their constituents, I'm going to say it for and on their behalf and say it to the entire nation. I was also reminded on this adjournment, and I want to say to the very feisty and fiery advocate for Engliston that all of us on this side, we want to offer you sincere condolences on the passing of your brother. You were not in the House over the past couple of sittings, and so we want you to know that we offer you sincere condolences, and earth has no sorrow that heaven cannot cure. With that, Mr. Speaker, I want to move that the House do adjourn until Wednesday, February 21st at 10 a.m.
I do second that.
It has been moved and seconded that the House do adjourn to Wednesday, the 21st of February at 10 a.m. As many as are in favor will remain seated. Those who oppose will stand. Final adjournment.
Mr. Speaker, I do have
This House stands adjourned to Wednesday, the 21st of February at 10 a.m.